A Filipino construction worker who came to Christchurch for a better life says he's been bullied, kicked in the back and hit in the head at work. It comes after a report released this week by E2 Union found construction workers brought in from the Philippines for jobs in Auckland and Christchurch are frequently being exploited. The worker who asked for us not to use his real name says relaxing iron-tight visa rules is the only way to stop the exploitation of his fellow countrymen and women. The man we've called Juan told our reporter Logan Church he'd been physically and verbally abused on work sites, but had no choice but to put up with it or he'd lose his job.
Juan relocated to New Zealand in 2015 for a better life. The joiner-turned-builder came from a building site in Qatar on the recommendation from a Filipino friend who said his boss was looking for people to work on the Christchurch rebuild.
First, my impression of New Zealand was it was a better place to come to and work because it's Western influence, under the crown. I mean, I've been hearing all the good things about New Zealand.
But that dream turned out to be a fantasy. Juan says while he was happy with his pay of $24 an hour, far below the industry standard, the expectations put on him were grueling. He says being told to complete 8 hours worth of work in 4 hours was a common occurrence.
I used to grind the floor in a Templeton site, and my foreman told me that you have to finish this by 12 o'clock, before lunchtime, because I'm bringing back that machine. It's only for half a day. So I was really working my ass off trying to finish out before lunchtime because he needs to take it back. My surprise was, at the end of that particular week, I chanced upon seeing my timesheet and all the scope of work that the foreman writes on. And on that particular day, he put that I work on that particular job for the whole 8 hours. So if they were cheating on that particular day, what about the other job I was doing?
But Juan tells me that's because his work visa tethered him to his employer. His only option was to stay quiet. So he did. But 6 months later, he and his 6 co-workers were made redundant. Desperate for a new job to enable him to send money home to his family, he accepted a new role at a small family-owned joinery firm for $21 an hour. The first year was good, but then things went sour.
Sometimes they will call your names. I've been called an idiot, been called stupid. Sometimes I've been told that I should be ashamed of myself. I've been hit in the back of my head, and I've been kicked in the butt twice with all the hardship, the berating, the belittle, sometimes the bullying. I just keep mum. I mean, I don't fight back or whatever. There's no point there.
Juan says he was once again subjected to unrealistic work demands, all for $21 an hour. On top of this, it was impossible to check if he was actually getting what he was owed, because in the second year of the job, his employer stopped giving him pay slips, saying he did not need them. After almost 3 years, Juan transferred to another job, where he works now. So why does Juan stay working in a country where his employers appear to have treated him so badly?
It's for the opportunity. I still have a daughter to finish college. If my daughter, we're already done with school, it's no worries, I can head home. But I still need to provide for my daughters.
So you're here for your wife and your 2
yes.
daughters?
The eldest is 19, the youngest is 17, turning 18. It's difficult because I've been working overseas for 16 years, and I go home to visit them, on vacation just every 2-3 years like that. So most of my life, is spent overseas, and I don't get to see them. I can't afford to go home on a Christmas because I couldn't afford the ticket.
But what is even more heart-wrenching is that it appears Juan is not alone. Migrante is a support network for Filipino workers in New Zealand, and its chairperson, Mikey Santos, says exploitation is widespread. He says that creates even more problems for migrants and their communities.
You will be placed on a different job site, maybe different site tomorrow. So you're jumping per site, the distance may be getting farther or sometimes closer to your house, but it adds burden to their fuel, to their familiarity of their work. They don't have a collective there. They don't have, in your job site, you should know people who you work with. But because you're jumping from one site to another and you're constantly moving around, it harder for the migrant to assimilate.
So, what can be done? Juan thinks the rules need to change, so skilled migrants don't need to rely on employers to sponsor their work visa. Current skilled migrant visa rules require your employer to fill in a form as part of your application. This is called an employer supplementary form.
My employer knows that I need a sponsor for my visa renewal. So whatever they offer on the table, I have to accept it. No qualms. Otherwise, I don't have a sponsor.
In a statement, the Immigration Minister, Ian Lees-Galloway, says he is hearing stories like this more often than he's comfortable with. He says that is why government is about to embark on a piece of work that will look at all of our immigration settings, what opportunities there are for exploitation in our immigration system, and to take whatever steps we need to eliminate those. But for Juan, all he can do now is hold on. He needs to keep working here until his youngest daughter finishes studying. Then, and only then, he might be able to go home. In Christchurch for Checkpoint, call Logan Church Tēnei.